let's get into that thought model. Yesterday in the Facebook group, I asked you a question, and I want to get the exact words of the question that I asked, and it was, do you consider yourself an athlete? That was the question that I asked. And I asked you to put what your thoughts were down below. Here's what I consider an athlete. I think athletes have dreams. How many times have you heard somebody win a gold medal or win a sporting event, and the interviewer asks them a question, and they talk about how they've been dreaming about this moment since they were a kid. And they talk about some of their long-term goals and their short-term goals during that interview. But it all really starts with a dream. We know that athletes have good nutrition, right? They watch what they eat. They're careful about their exercise. They watch things inside of their lifestyle. They plan how to make everything fit. They hydrate and they recover. They sleep. They do all of those things. To me, that's what an athlete does. Now, I asked you that same question, and here were some of the answers that you gave to me, okay? So, discipline, accountability, time management, no excuses, okay? Commitment to myself and my training plan, healthy diet, sleep, exercise program. Ooh, the print's a little small. Having fun. That's what happens, right? Glasses on, glasses off. Having fun with it and working to always keep my focus on my goal. My exercise regime workout program would take precedence over nearly everything in my life. And number 2, my nutritional needs would definitely supersede any pressure to eat and drink unhealthfully. And the last one is, looking at myself as an athlete, I'd balance my workout routine, cardio and weights, consistently eat balanced meals, daily salt baths with essential oils. I love those too. Always have a positive attitude, have fun every day, play pickleball 6 days a week instead of 4. Ooh, that's not a bad goal. So those were some of the things that you said when I asked you what you thought. And again, the question was, do you consider yourself an athlete? What would you think if I said, do you consider yourself an athlete? Okay, so we're going to put that into the thought model, because how we think about things impacts our actions, which impacts our result. Whatever result you're getting or lack thereof is a direct result of your thought. And unfortunately, sometimes we are totally unaware of what we're thinking. So here's the thought model again. And you can always jump and get this portion. It's in section 4. It's in our lifestyle section. So you can, at any point in time, if you want to go through that, jump down there, go through that section. But here's what it is. So we have a neutral circumstance. And our neutral circumstance triggers a thought. That thought then triggers a feeling. The feeling triggers an action. And the action triggers a result. So let me give you an example that's pretty easy to understand. Let's just say I told you today at the start of this that it's cold here. That's not a circumstance. That's actually a thought. The neutral circumstance is something that you could not argue with. It's 40 degrees here. Okay, that's a neutral circumstance. If you walk outside, you looked at a thermometer, the thermometer is going to say 40 degrees. You can't argue with the fact that it's 40 degrees, right? That is all something we could agree on. The thought it triggers for me today is, it's cold here. The feeling that it triggers is, I'm uncomfortable. My hands are cold. My feet are cold. I am uncomfortable. The action that creates is I put on something warm and I turn up the heat in the house. The result I get is I feel better. Make sense? Okay. Give me a thumbs up if it makes sense. Put it down. Go ahead and put it down in the comments below. I'll wait for just a minute. I'm waiting, but you'll be here. I know you will be. There's a little delay between me talking and you being able to get to the comments. Good. All right. Starting to make sense. So the first part of understanding the thought model when I teach this, and by the way, I want to say the thought model is not CJ's original thought model. Okay, this comes from a life coach by the name of Brooke Castillo. And one of the things that I know from my own personal weight loss journey and my health and wellness journey is that it's not about the action. It really is about how I think about those actions that have brought me success or failure at different points. And so when I teach this thought model, one of the very first things that I need to teach you is I need you to teach you the difference between that neutral circumstance and the thought. And again, neutral circumstance. So think everybody could agree to this, okay, versus an actual thought. So everybody could agree to the thermometer says 40 degrees. Everybody could agree to the fact that it's snowing outside. If you had snow and the snow was coming down, it's snowing outside. Versus the thought of, oh my God, it's snowing outside, I have to drive in the snow. Or the thought, oh my God, it's snowing outside, I get to go skiing. Two different thoughts triggered by the neutral circumstance. The one that I used in last week's video, and I'm going to repeat that one because it has to do with weight loss. When we stand on a scale, the scale simply gives us a number that tells us our gravitational pull on the earth at that point in time. That's it. That's all it says. So if I get on the scale and the scale tells me 160 pounds, that's the neutral circumstance. The thought behind that is, oh my God, am I fat? That could be one thought behind it, right? If somebody used to weigh 130 pounds and now they weigh 160 pounds when they get on the scale, they might look at that scale and say, oh my God, I'm fat. Conversely, if somebody used to weigh 250 pounds and they got on the scale and it said 160 pounds, they might think, oh my God, I've never weighed 160 pounds. I'm skinny. Now, the neutral circumstance is the same. The scale says 160 pounds. It's the thought that's different. Then it's the thought that creates a feeling. It's the feeling that creates an action or lack thereof. It doesn't have to be an action. If I got on the scale and I saw, oh my God, I'm fat, the thought might be, oh, I am disgusting and I'm overwhelmed. I can't do anything about it right now. And it may create non-action. I don't go to the gym because I don't feel motivated. I feel icky. Opposite thing, if I got on that scale and I used to weigh 200 pounds and now it says 160 pounds and I feel, oh my God, I'm skinny. I feel so good. I'm going to spend an extra 10 minutes at the gym. Those are two different actions and those are going to ultimately create two different results. Okay, so let's jump in to the feeling and the thought. Let's try and run the thought about being an athlete through our thought model, because that's how we learn this, is we have to practice this. It's like any other skill. Most of the time my thoughts just go through my head. In fact, scientists tell us we have between 40 and 60,000 thoughts a day, and we're certainly not aware of all of them. Now, we are aware of our actions, but we're not necessarily aware of those thoughts, and we have to dig deep to understand those thoughts. So let's go ahead and run that athlete question through the thought model. So what I went back here and did is I trimmed your answers just a little bit in treating yourself as an athlete to try and get a neutral circumstance out of here. And in the very first one, the word accountability was actually used. The next thing to me was commitment to myself and my training plan. To me, that's accountability, commitment. I think those are pretty interchangeable words. The next one was take precedent and supersede. Okay, accountability. The last one, consistently and daily. Again, if I were to tie those all up into one thing, the neutral circumstance for an athlete is accountability. And I think that would be pretty hard for any of us to argue against that athletes are not accountable. People who are athletes are accountable. They may be accountable to themselves. They may be accountable to a coach. They may be accountable to an institution, like the U.S. Olympic Committee. They may be accountable to another athlete, to a training partner. But I think we could probably all agree that athletes in some way, shape, or form are accountable. Are accountable. Okay? So that is the neutral circumstance. So once we dug deep and really kind of looked at those things and we came up with the neutral circumstance, let's run it through what a trigger of thoughts could be. Okay? So when it comes to your own health and wellness, if the circumstance is accountability, it may trigger a thought for you like, I have to exercise. Have to. Have can imply a lot of things. But when you tell me I have to do something, to me, the next feeling that comes up is overwhelm, dread. What comes up for you when I tell you you have to do something? Are you enthused about it? I mean, if you have a word that pops up, feel free to share it in the comments below. For me personally, when I feel like I have to, and I just noticed I wasn't on the screen. When I come up with I have to, that's what I feel, is I feel overwhelm and dread. Because, oh my God, now I have to fit this into my busy day. How am I going to do that? And I feel dread. And I can already, when I start to think of those emotions, because to me, those are negative emotions. When I start to feel those negative emotions, I feel that little ball coming overwhelming in my stomach. And what I do, I avoid it. That's my action. So my action is a lack of action, right? I avoid it. When I feel overwhelm and dread, I don't want anything to do with it. When I avoid it, I would fall short of my goals. In this case, it's a health and wellness goal. Okay? So that's the neutral circumstance. Accountability triggers a have to thought, and that's what it triggers inside of me. Okay? Now, it could trigger a completely different thought. Think back to the person who gained weight versus the person who lost weight. Here's what I really think about when I think about accountability. Accountability as an athlete to me is I get to exercise today. I get to. Do you notice just the difference on my face when I said that word? I mean, I'm thinking about it right now and I know I'm smiling versus I'm going, I get to do this today. Instead of, oh my God, I have to do this today. You notice just my whole body language changes. And I bet yours does too. But when I get to do something and that's how I'm thinking about it, I am excited. I am genuinely happy about doing something. My action is I give it my best because I'm excited about doing it. So even though I may not do it as well as I'd like to do it, because I'm thinking I get to, I give it a good try, right? What the old college try. When I give it the old college try, I achieve my goals. So for me, those are just simply my thoughts when I have that neutral circumstance of accountability. In this case, it was accountability for being an athlete. Now, I didn't arrive at that. Excuse me. I didn't arrive at that like this afternoon. I have a lot of practice putting my thoughts through these thought models to understand exactly what that neutral circumstance triggers, the thought that it triggers up here in my brain, and then the feeling. Because here's what I would tell you. We can all change our actions for certain periods of times. And I know from talking to all of you at different points in times, you've had some success with health and wellness, but you're still not where you want to be. Well, some of that's habits, But those habits are really triggered by your thoughts and your feelings. And that's where we need to dig deep to find out what's going on so that we have long-term success. Yes, we're doing things to create physical change, physical and nutritional change as part of this program. But to really get long-term success, we have to understand the thoughts and the feelings. And most of us never get to that. Okay. Ooh, all right. So before we go on, I just saw a great comment. Therese said, when I think I have to do something, I oftentimes say I'll do it later. Later may not happen. Ooh, good point. So that's digging it out. So how do you get better at this? You start by doing thought downloads. Okay. So when you start these thought downloads, here's what I want to caution you of. I want you to pay attention to your thoughts. I want you to think, I'm curious. I'm a conscious observer. So the minute you hear that little girl or that little guy sitting on your shoulder saying, you shouldn't think that, that's just an awful thought. I want you to think of how you would treat your best friend or one of your kids or your spouse or your significant other if they came to you with a problem that they wanted to discuss with you. You would sit down and you'd be compassionate, right? I mean, oh, tell me about it. What's going on? Tell me what you're thinking, right? You'd be curious to understand what that person was thinking. So as you start this process, I want you to promise me you will be kind to yourself, conscious observer, non-judgmental in this process. Because I guarantee you, if you're anything like me, when you start to go through this process, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe after all this time, I still think this stuff. I have to tell you, and I'll share this later on in the program, I have some real issues around scarcity of food. And I've never been hungry in my life. I am one of those people, I've never gone hungry. I have scarcity issues that drive me to take crazy, goofy actions around food. And like I said, I'll share that later on. But I don't beat myself up for those actions. Okay, I have learned to say, wow, that's interesting. Where is that coming from? Tell me more about that. Just like I would be compassionate to a friend. So as you start this process, it's a 5 to minute thought download. And what I mean by a thought download is one of two things. Either you take a pen and you write it out, or you get on your computer and you type it. I don't really care. My preference for me personally is I like to write. There's a connection, a very powerful connection for me between my hand and a piece of paper. There's something amazing that happens. But I need to get it down on paper, because when I see my own thoughts on paper, now I'm able to start to pull out the circumstance, right? The neutral circumstance versus the thought. And that's the first step to recognizing this, is I've got to be able to identify the two of those. And by just doing it in our heads, I'm just going to tell you, it just doesn't happen. You're going to try it. I did. I know you will. I tried it. I am much more effective at this process when I write it down. Even though I've been using this process for a long time, I'm still more effective when I write it down. So I want you to start committing to a 5 to 10 minute thought download. And all you're going to do is just write or type, whichever one works for you. Ideally, the time to do this is if you feel a lot of negative emotion coming on. Okay, because we really want to get to the root of what's going on. So if you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed or anything like that, you're feeling that urge to eat, you've promised yourself you wouldn't snack, and you're about to head into the kitchen and you're feeling that type of thing, you're going to avoid your exercise for today. You're not going to do something like that. That's when I ideally grab that pen and paper and start to write or start to type. That's the time that you want to do it. As you put all of that down, I want you to start to look for that neutral circumstance. And what I do, and I still do, I circle it. I just circle it, and I put NC for neutral circumstance, or I put T for thought as to what it is triggering. And as I said before, this will be much more effective for you if you do it either typing it out or if you do it on paper, not in your head. You're just not going to get those kind of results. Okay, So that's a little homework for you, because what that does is that's going to tie into that getting started portion, right? Because I know in that getting started portion, we're talking about goals and dreams and some of the things. It's really setting you up for when times get tough. And by starting to understand what you're thinking and what you're writing, that will help you. So make sure you start getting into the getting started. If you haven't already done so, if you haven't gotten into the program, commit to yourself X amount of time, 5 minutes a day, where you're going to write those cheat sheets out. Do the thought downloads. That's another 5 minutes a day. But commit those two things to yourself. Okay? So that's your assignment for week 2. Now, I also have one little bonus for you. And if you have questions, now's a good time to start typing them in. Okay? Well, I tell you about the bonus that's coming up. So after talking, again, this is one of the great parts about having a beta group is I can make changes on the fly because the group is small enough, which is what I wanted. I talk a lot about stretching, and when we get into the fitness portion, if you haven't already done it, there's a fitness test to tell you where you are in the 5 key areas of fitness. And one of those that's extremely important to us as we get older is we need to stretch our bodies for a variety of reasons. You're going to learn about all of those variety of reasons. And so as I went through that, I realized I coach you a lot on stretching, but I didn't necessarily help you with a program or understand really what you should be doing with stretching. So I have written a little ebook that's going to tell you all about stretching, even give you a little stretching plan, and I'm going to include that as a bonus to you. My husband is in the process of editing it right now. He's off the next couple days. If you read my emails, you know that I skip words. My grammar's not the best. I am who I am. So when I need the written word done, I rely on 2 things. I rely on Grammarly, which is a program for the computer, and I rely on my hubby. And right now he's off the next 2 days, and he's going to go through and do a final edit and clean it up just a little bit before we release it to you. Don't feel bad to help me with my grammar. I'm grateful. I really am, because I'm just not very good at it. So he's going to go through and do that. As soon as he cleans that up, I will post it under the bonus section, and I will make sure to let you know that it's there. But thanks for the great suggestion. I think that came from Janie. I'm pretty sure. Okay. All right, questions. I'm not seeing anything. If we are good, can you give me a thumbs up so that I know we're good? And it was kind of funny. She mentioned the stretching thing, and I was like, oh, what a great idea. What can I put together quickly? So I had actually started something a while back, because stretching has really changed my life. That program that I told you about previously that I took Mary through, I went through it as a student, and my commitment to myself the very first time I did that was to stretch the stretching was 10 minutes a day, and that includes stretching, rolling, foam rollers, things like that. And I did it. It happened during ski season. I joined that group in January, and I'm a ski instructor, and your hips get really tight from skiing. It made such a difference in how I felt, just that short 10 minutes a day. It's a habit that I've kept up for a long period of time. So, okay. So it looks like everyone has their questions answered. If you don't have your questions answered, sorry, I didn't center that. Come to the Facebook group. Put them in the Facebook group, because if you're thinking about them, chances are somebody else is thinking about them as well. That's probably the best way to get me. If it's something personal that you prefer not to share, you can do one of 2 things. You can either email it to me, or you can save it for your one-on-one call with me, and we can talk about it then. So don't feel like you have to share like a bunch of personal stuff in the Facebook group. If it really gets deep, we can do it then. All right, next week. So no questions. Everybody looks good. So next week, back here, same time, same place, same station. And we're going to start talking more about the nutrition model and how all that works. All right. Look forward to seeing you next Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Pacific time, because you know what I always say, together we can train smart, live bold, and age well. Everybody have a wonderful evening.